Yes.
Yeah. But the hands, they're soft.
Try the hands again. Someone, let's go.
No, it's good. No, but the clap, yeah, you can tell. Yeah,
no.
It's not clapping, you must clap with confidence.
Yeah, with the chest.
So we have a new director. Oh, Songololo. Shout out to Songs, and
they
she's
got
back,
you into
man.
it.
Welcome back, Songo.
Welcome back, Songo.
Yeah, man, back at it. The name is Yakir Moflagvali. I am the master builder, not flying solo as always. We have the certified gatekeeper.
Iwa bulaba, get. Iwa bulaba, get. Iwa bulaba, afubele. Watana beseku, nikabale. Salmana wana.
That's a dope intro.
Listen.
Yeah, man. Today we have a very special edition. But before we get there, there's this Bala thing. How's your business with it? You going to it?
The Pala family situation.
Yes,
But I'm already moving around. Was saying, "Uzwai, go to a country." So
it's still a good relationship.
No, I fucked with it. I fucked with it. Kakolo. I still can't relate properly with Loiso, but I was happy that he took out the kids with the grandmother.
Okay.
But I just noted that he did it when the wife wasn't around. That's problematic. We don't know if it would have happened if the wife was around.
Okay. There's tensions there.
Yeah, when people get married into families, and I just feel like Loiso does not really have a vision for his family, but the wife does.
Okay.
And so there's that clash. I don't know. I could be wrong. I think that's how I feel. Like my dad took leadership in the identity of the Mahamishala family. I just feel Loiso does not have that strong vision for the direction and identity of the Bala family. Do you know what I'm saying? That's just me. And then Zwei. Oh. Hi guys, I'm still a fan. I respect him so much. Tifuna tibana putswai no bakulapha ezwide GLEN. Tibulisa timolo putswai.
Yeah.
Yeah, but tifuna ingcibiso ngento eyi-1 so he can advise me. I respect him so much, guys. Head of the country. Pelo doesn't want to take responsibility. He's still in love with. He loves Musha. He says. It's the way, it's his tone, man. We must record it for you. It's his tone. Like, it's like I still love him. I really do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, shame this guy, man. Yeah. And he still wants to get married one day to somebody else. And he wants the divorce to happen. I'm still not sure what happens. I still need to study properly the whole same-sex marriages. Do they get dissolved much like divorces? Because I'm not sure if they get a marriage certificate, because they have not been defined as marriage, but rather as civil unions, if I understand it correctly. So, something like that. So I want to understand, because marriage is still defined as a contract between a man and a woman, because it's still defined in a Christian way. So I do find it interesting, that part. But how's this divorce thing going to work? Are they going to get a divorce decree? Can you give a divorce decree in a situation of a civil union? It's a lot. It's a lot.
I knew we were gonna get a scoop. All right, now, we want to welcome, a great man, Mr. Channel the Chakras, the Rebel Academic, Mr. Glenn G. Holtzman. He defines himself as a Kamisa African from the Western Cape. I'm particularly interested. Welcome to the show, brother.
Well, thank you so much, my brother, and thanks so much for having me. Let's start with what is a Kamisa African. It's only over the past couple of years that I started referring to myself as a Kamisa African through my constantly expanding awareness and consciousness, whereby there's a movement in the Western Cape, in Cape Town, where I'm from, to try to get rid of the horrible colonial terminology about people being called coloured.
Okay.
and wondering what is that. So the Kamisa River is a waterway in Cape Town, and the people of the water is what we are referring to ourselves as by calling ourselves Kamisa people. It's a reference to just like a river has got an original source, but there could be multiple tributaries that it could go off into or converge into ultimately one ocean. We're saying that we, the people of mixed waters, of mixed heritage, are still flowing in humanity. So that's where the terminology Kamisa comes from. There's a Kamisa museum which is doing exhibitions reclaiming this identity for the citizens, the mixed race citizens, the so-called colored people of Cape Town, at the castle of Good Hope. I've not gone to see it myself. And I've also written about it in my own research, where I also problematize it to say, so what is this thing colored? What is this thing Kamisa? What is this thing Khoi or Asan or Bushman people? Cape colored, other colored, it goes on and on. So in essence, I said that this gives too much dilution, too much confusion about who are these people. And so even this terminology, Kamisa, adds to the confusion, but it's a way for some of us to say, we're going to define ourselves with our own term as opposed to being defined by others.
Yeah, you're seizing the power to define.
Yes.
You know, I had a lot of
Kamisa.
people that I've met and had acquaintances with who we say they're colored. And most of them, what I found interesting was that whenever they trace themselves back, the few that I got to mingle with, they were always claiming a European ancestor. And I don't know what informs that.
It's a difficult one. I've had that same challenge. I've felt that I've been de-Africanized and only came to the realization that I was a black man, a black African man, in my early 20s. That's remarkable that you would grow up for 20, 21 years not seeing yourself as a black man in Africa. And part of that is because of the mindset we've inherited also, intergenerational trauma, I called it. Now, the European ancestry is something which perhaps some of our black African peers are struggling to understand. What is the interest in wanting to claim this? Sometimes it's because it's the only knowledge we do have about where do we come from. Because there's one thing about the Europeans, they were very good at keeping documents. So colored people, in my view, are people who don't often know their ancestry and often have got no connection to their ancestors. Even the idea of engaging with ancestors is something I've only become exposed to and really ingrained in my own identity through my encounters with cultures elsewhere. But the difficulty we are running into as a people who's been de-Africanized is we are finding the sense of reclaiming our own identities, what I'm calling multiple identities. So that is why in my own research even, I've only been able to go so far with a little bit of European ancestry. It's confusing. Sometimes there are skeletons in the closets with a lot of colored people because of the interracial taboo, the association with you were deliberately manipulating the law by going against what was the Immorality Act back in the day. And so the idea that I'm the product of some sort of what I used to refer to as jungle fever, you know, this lust between black and white for the other, to be the product of it and to have a whole community of people feeling where do we belong. You can't blame us for saying, oh, I do come from this white ancestry also, because it's a longing to know, if I'm not African enough, what else am I? So it's been a struggle. My own search has led me to missionary archives, to figuring out about Germans and Austrians who came over, that those are my ancestors. I can't deny it. But there are locals also which we don't know that much about. So
because
it's
of
a
the
very
recording of history,
complex.
But so many layers.
Yes.
You know, because when I don't know if you know Dr. Nomalanga Mkhize.
Yes.
You know,
good colleague.
Nomalanga is a historian, no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in her account of history, she was talking about, you know, in the arrival of the settlers and, you know, other nations, they were welcomed and they integrated within the communities that they found at the time. So whenever, if you would go and check your lineage in terms of blood and DNA, you would find out that in one era or not, there was a white person within your genes. Even with people who say we are indigenous African people, we were here, we were not part of a mix and stuff like that. And I found that interesting.
I agree with you. I think it's because every human is in search of a sense of self. And I've really devoted my whole life so far to this idea of the selfhood and personhood, I call it. That is a question of who am I? And you are not your name.
Yes.
Your name is something which is a part of you and has been given to you, but you're so much more than that. And a part of that is trying to figure out, where do I come from? What am I doing here? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing here? Where do I fit in? How do I belong? What can I contribute? How will I achieve some type of success with my life? Because we know it's not just us walking in the shoes, but our ancestors with us, our families with us, our communities with us. And that also means one has so much of a burden in life, because are you finding you, or are you doing you in relation to others? And it's such a slippery slope. It's what I call, not to get too intellectual, the interpersonal, that's how you engage with other people, and the intrapersonal within yourself, your own sense making. So I think we all are on a journey trying to make sense of ourselves.
Yeah, you just reminded me of a saying from Maya Angelou. I think she says, I stand as one, but I come forth as thousands, or the other way around. I'm not too sure which one it is, but it always reminds me when I'm in spaces that the person outside of me may see just me, but truth is there's a whole lot more on the stage than just me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I carry the dreams of others, and it's like the understanding that we are not individuals to the exclusion of all else that was before us. Instead, we're a continuation of life. Yes. So mine is to continue what I started, perhaps in another body in another time, or what other bodies started on my behalf at this time. So we are always just this recurring chain that when I pass away, somebody else will continue where I left off. And so that new life is not a new life on its own, but rather, you know, a continuation of me,
of what was.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, when we talk about, you know, self-discovery, you know, self-definition, self-determination, and things like that, I think tradition at times can hold us back. You know, I just want to hear your thoughts on this matter, Glenn.
Once again, I can say so much about it. Sorry to even cut you off there, because you just mentioned the word tradition. This is why I say, once you recognize that we as humans on this planet are having such a complex experience, but at the same time, such a simple experience, because we're just an animal walking on this planet Earth, like all other creatures. So that's the complexity of it. But now you've raised this point of tradition, and every single human is born into some type of tradition. Which they've not chosen deliberately.
Yes,
That's why one of the most powerful moments of teaching and learning that I have with my students has got nothing to do with what's prescribed in the curriculum, but is the awareness that comes to them when I open up this valve in their mind, when I say, now imagine you are not yourself with the home you grew up in. You grew up in your next door neighbor's house. I want you to be that version of yourself. Then they all of a sudden realize, oh my gosh, had I grown up in my neighbor's house, I wouldn't be me. And they realize that the neighbor's children are who they are because they've grown up in that house, not in the one next door. And that's why I say that's the power of tradition. Tradition is at the first locus in the family unit. That's the grandparents, that's the parents, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins. They enculturate us to become aware of what I find is also one of the most problematic things in the world, the concept of normalcy or normativity or being normal. Normativity is the performance of showing I am normal. And so that's how you already are entangled in tradition. Then you expanded beyond the family nucleus to the community. Those are your churches, your schools, your teachers, children from other homes, other communities coming and gathering. You start enculturating your sense of self in relation to that. And as you mature, you've always got this is how the ego develops also, this awareness speaking to you like this, not like that. And I think when people ultimately mature and they shift out of the entrapment of tradition, they reach a stage of saying, I don't care what anyone else thinks about me, including those in my nucleus. The ones who are the safety net, who have the power to reject me so profoundly,
the tradition,
or to give me that sense of belonging and security, that I'm going to say I am advanced enough in my sense of self that your love or hate of me has no reflection or meaning or impact on who I'm going to be, because I love me and I hate me. So your things which you're projecting onto me, it's like weather out there. I can't control it, but I can adapt to it. So I think that's why culture, it's a beautiful thing. It gives us that sense of personhood and selfhood, but it shouldn't define who you are, nor should you always feel locked into it. But unfortunately, in my opinion, a lot of people are trapped in tradition and in culture. They are too lazy to go do soul searching of who they really are, that it's much easier to go to the default tradition, default culture. I don't have to go searching for something. Somebody's told me you are this.
Just be lukewarm.
I'm sorry, just to pull us backwards now. I'm just now in the space of the person who's watching or the person who's listening, and we mentioned that you're a rebel academic. I think just a short brief of who you are would assist people to place you. Do you know what I mean? So that as they listen or watch, they have an understanding of what informed us getting you here. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think that is helpful, and perhaps a good way to phrase this, or to perhaps package it in a nutshell for people to understand, why is this man making sense of the world in that way that he is? I think it's rooted in the fact that I regard myself as a queer individual. And a lot of my scholarship has looked at this concept of queerness, which was a derogatory thing associated with homosexuality in the past. But we opened our conversation even looking at, what is this thing, Kamisa, this label you're attaching to yourself? It's a queer thing. Kamisa people claiming, just like the queer people have, an identity saying we are other, or you have thought we are that, but we're not actually that, we are this. I am doing the same thing in relation to so many spheres of life, trying to queer it. Queering behavior, queering the body, queering your sexuality, queering your religion, your spirituality, your racial identity, your sense of place and safety where you are, and wonder what makes you feel you're in alignment, even if you're regarded as being queer by somebody else. Does that make sense now? So somebody else saying to you, I don't quite think that's traditional, but you recognize I'm in alignment with myself, even though it goes against the benchmarks of what tradition is. Even being racially queer, not being white enough, not being black enough, it's a little seesaw I've got to straddle daily, because I've got to have what I call the triple consciousness, how I engage with black people, how I engage with white people, and how I engage with so-called other colored people. And having to put those multiple identities on, there's also the concept I'm really passionate about, the 3 types of selves. The secret self. They all have a secret self. I'm very in touch with mine, and while I'm rooted in my queer identity, then you've got the other self, which is the private self. That's the one you give to your friends, to your loved ones, to your family. Then you've got the public self, which is a different alter ego coming through. And not many people are aware of those different layers of themselves.
Is it supposed to be like that if we are saying we are in a journey
I can recognize.
we all have that.
I can recognize my different selves.
Yeah, we all have that. But like I'm saying, shouldn't we, evolve and develop to a point where you are just this person you are everywhere, every time of the day?
Yes, that's why those of us who are doing it are finding we don't belong in the world. Like the people sitting with me in this room, like the thousands of other people I've crossed in my cosmopolitan bohemian lifestyle.
Yes,
because we decided to do exactly what you touched on there, which was to say, I cannot be who I am and suppress it and go to my grave happy, should it come to me tonight.
That's the reason I stopped working as an attorney in the making. The idea that, for instance, I never wanted to leave any part of myself outside. So I would come to work wearing funny underwear with cartoon characters or polka dot, because that's an expression of me. But at the on my desk, there'd be colorful sweets, and I'd never be in the office without music. And I mean, a legal firm or a space with legal minds, it's very quiet. People are focusing on their files, but I could not do it. And eventually I had to say, no, this is not where I belong, because I never want to be in a space where I have to live, well, knowing that part of me is waiting for me outside of the space. I always want to have all parts of myself with myself wherever I go, and eventually I said, I'm going to bounce, because there must be space where I can fully express myself as who I am,
be present.
as who I am. But that being said, still, I find that those 3 dimensions of self are still alive. Though obviously the more, that whole thing, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I find that I am me everywhere, but also there's a certain kind of awareness of the other people that receive me, right? Such that in the public spaces, I wouldn't just say, no, don't give me oros, I'm poetic soul galok. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do that in a public space with people that don't know me. But with my friends, I would say that.
Yes.
So I find that, yes, there are ways in which we present ourselves, and there are ways in which we preserve ourselves.
Yes. Because you've got to preserve yourself also, because it's all you've got. You are the only keeper of yourself at the end of the day. That's why so many people are having mental health challenges at this time. It's exacerbated more so than ever, because we are living in difficult times, but because people are realizing you can't suppress what's real any longer.
Do you think it's also because we are at that space and stage of awakening to our true selves?
Yes.
And a lot of people are struggling
for the first time.
Yeah, they're struggling with this thing of, oh no, I haven't been me, and I can't fully be me, because they still have to compete with themselves with the notion of what the world expects of them. Because remember, not all of us are self-employed. Not all of us can just come to a podcast and know we're not earning a cent, but find our gratification in the fact that we're doing it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Not all of us can do that. Some people have to uniform themselves according to how the world moves. But at the same time, they've realized that there's something bigger in me than this uniform life.
Yes.
And that's where the struggle begins.
some people are saying, how do I make sense out of this world? Because I'm encountering nothing but struggle and obstacle. And I see others around me either having less of it than me and questioning, rightly so, why? And when you go back to the grassroots of every human experience, you start to understand that because of the diversity of the human expression, life would be boring if we had everybody just excelling and succeeding. There'd be nothing for us to do and very little for us to learn. And sometimes people who have got that obstacle and that struggle, I say, you haven't realized you're much richer than the one living in the mansion because the wealth of soul knowledge you take with you to the other realm through struggle.
I tell that to a common folk walking the streets now. They will say that's privilege speaking.
I think that's why you find...
But it's the spiritual awakening.
Do you know, recognize...
No, I love GLEN. The sports.
Recognize a child who grows up from wealth, right?
Yes.
Vis-a-vis a child who works hard for wealth. And they may have the same amount in their bank accounts. However, they don't treat it the same. And you'll find that the child who was born into it is quick sometimes to lose it because they don't understand the work that goes into it. Every cent of it is not a story to that child. You know what I mean? There's no spirit, as you say, to that money. It's just money. But the one who works hard for it, that rags to riches kind of vibe, they almost honor every amount they have because there was, I would say, as a child who had praying grandmothers, there was prayer over that money. There was some sort of, anointing over that money and whatever else. So true, sometimes those who are living in what we would perceive to be, difficult situations, when you tell them how blessed they are to be walking through that, they will fuck off you.
Yes.
Yeah? Because what are you saying? Look at other kids driving around with their X5s and whatnot.
Want the soft life.
We want the soft life.
So true. This is why I interjected this saying it's the spiritual awakening, because once you have had a spiritual awakening, you will realize that you want nothing. This is why I say those who have nothing are not aware of their wealth. Because they've still got the need or want for, as opposed to saying to themselves, this is who I am. I am nothing. I want nothing. I need nothing. So you are right. It could come across like privilege talk, but I'm speaking from the perspective. I'm so glad you raised that point. People who are born into wealth see wealth differently. I wasn't born into wealth. I'm looking here with my jewelry, with my beautiful tailored costume. I've got my PhD, I've got my car, I've got my house. I'm living by the beach. All earned. I've come from a broken home, rejected, almost feeling like an orphan with no parents. Mother leaves the father who's an alcoholic. We're going to live in a shack in somebody's backyard. I know going to the toilet with a flashlight at night. I know washing out of the bucket.
You have a flashlight.
I know doing I know doing the washing by hand. Well, I am a city boy after all. But this gives you a sense of when I say I don't go around preaching. You see, but that's why I say poverty. I embraced poverty as my friend in my youth. And the reason why I say the spiritual awakening is still undergoing in that person or has not yet taken place, I've got a philosophy which says once you embrace it as your friend, as your comrade, poverty, grief, death, whatever will bring affliction to you, they won't visit you as often.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny, it's funny that you guys are talking about, Dr. Holzman is saying, but when you realize yourself, you realize that you want nothing. I was watching a short clip, and they were showing, who's this guy? Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars grew up in like poverty. So he was showing them where they came from and where he is now. Obviously now he's got money. And so they were asking him, how did that make you feel? And he said the same thing that I think, Brakusta Jack, he said the same thing. It's like, when I was growing up in this household, we had each other. We were sleeping together in the same house. We were warm. We were keeping each other warm. We didn't know anything else. It did not feel like this is the worst thing that could happen to someone. It was just life at the time. Yeah. I only realized that was that way when I got into other situations.
And knowing where you're coming from. That's why I said, I may not know who my ancestors are, but I know that my parents were walking the garbage dump, what we call the skip or the tip, to go and find food to eat when they were children. I come from that type of heritage. So I always say, don't use my privilege, which I've built up for myself, against me, because I am the blossom at the end of the tree that my roots were watering. Wouldn't you like to bloom too?
Yeah, obviously.
Listen, are you thinking about, will you, could you? Are you at the point, or have you been there? Has it already happened where you're going to have already written a book?
Well, I am working on a book. One of the things I can tell you about me is I start something, and if I feel it doesn't bring me joy, I let it go.
Okay.
So I've started writing a number of books. The one I was busy with, and really had a lot of support from my academic colleagues for, was to interrogate this idea of blackness in music education and its absence. We can speak about that a bit more in the future, but I abandoned that book. I even said to my colleagues, why me? I've already done the opening up of the Pandora's box. I don't want to take all the toys out. Also, maybe somebody else has to do it, but I've opened that box. It's also because it takes too much trauma on the body, soul, and mind to speak about painful things. But it's part of the work of activism. But I've focused my attention more so to the idea of sensuousness and sexuality, the spiritual and the sexual, and that's where my book is going, that I'm convinced will come to fruition, which I'm working on. That brings me joy, because I've even looked at it in music, which is why I've said one of the talking points could be my interest in the altered state of consciousness. It's the idea of this difficult, dense life on this planet. We have got the spiritual gifts by which we can elevate ourselves and transcend it. You don't have to get in a plane to leave this planet. That's why music is there. That's why poetry is there. That's why visual art is there. That's why walking through the forest is there. That's why walking along the beach is there. That's why going into the water and doing a cleansing is there. That's why going to the river and leaving your prayer there is there. All of these things are there to remind us you are more than just your thoughts and body trying to survive.
I'm going to say this here, Kim. You might just say, oh, there she goes again. But have you read Ben Okri's Star book? I knew it. Have you read that book?
You know, when someone finds a book and then that book speaks to them, they don't let it go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think books also, they become part of our identity.
Books, music,
with everything that she has done from 20 years ago has been guided by the Star book.
Have you read that book, Glenn?
I don't know that book.
Ben Okri.
I'll go check it out.
He, as you were mentioning,
break it down.
Yeah. You were mentioning these different things. That's why music is there. That's why poetry is there. That's why you go to the river to cleanse. That's why this. And I mean, the book is about slavery, right? However, how he sets it up is it's at a village of artists where everything is art. Everything is about art. and everything happens through art. The best wars are won by those who do not fight. They win it artistically. That's his notion. Oh my God. It is something else to realize that even the folk songs we sing, according to him in that book, they started off from one little girl's heart, were whispered into another little girl's ear, and they moved, and they were commentating on the status of their community at that particular time. He's not lying. I've literally based everything I do in my artwork on that book. That the art is a social commentator, and the art is for the people. That without the art, the people don't live. Without the art, the people don't know. Guys.
I love that. I have to go and check it out.
It is
But
amazing.
I've been living by that philosophy. That's why I regard myself as a piece of art. My life is a work of art. I am absolutely invested in curating my life in a way that it will be a theater of self. It's a theater of my
Something to
love
revel
for
in.
myself. Not in an arrogant way, but as an example to all who come around me, who will encounter me long after I'm gone from this planet, maybe through a video like this, or hearing a podcast somewhere, or engaging with my music, that I love myself enough to be able to know whatever I do, because I regard it as beautiful, as meaningful. It's precious to me. Whether it's precious to you is of no consequence to me at all. That's again that idea of rooting yourself in the sense of knowing. I'm very particular in my life about helping people. The reason I'm here is to be a teacher, as I always say, not about what's in the exam, but about valuable life lessons. It's to get people to shift from having an idea of who they are to knowing who they are.
I don't know you that long. I know you for as long as we've been at the podcast. But I met you through a voice note that Zamani forwarded to me. And I listened to that voice note, and I already knew that this cannot be an interview. This needs to be a conversation. Because we write energies, even from things like a 9-second voice note. It's enough to know how you're going to direct this. But I want to know, and so therefore I don't know whereabouts in your life the awakening started to happen. But I imagine it was as you were in your academic journey, right? I want to know, in a space like, for instance, NMU, right, which is termed it's supposed to be an African university, African institution. Yeah, I'm getting in. I'm going in.
Dive deep.
I'm
mean,
not afraid to talk about controversial things. That's why I'm also who I am.
Yeah, I'm saying, and I don't think this is controversial. It's just my own curiosity that we all know that a large number of universities in South Africa are still colonized. They still white in areas that matter the most,
And
right?
tradition.
Exactly. So I want to know how easy it is for you to navigate the space, and it might be easy for you as an individual, but also take me through the eyes that are looking on, the white staff members, the black ones as well, who measure their lives according to whiteness. Do you know what I mean? What are these eyes saying as they're looking at you, being a piece of art and speaking the way that you do in a space where we're trying to get this right? We're trying, we cannot teach children an African style of journalism. You know what I mean? All these things, because I know one professor, Professor Sasanti, who you remind me of in the way that you speak, right? And he was also an enemy, but he's since left. But he is hell-bent on bringing all of himself to the experience of disseminating knowledge. And in some spaces, it has been problematic.
You will always be problematic when you tell people, I don't like that. People don't know how to respond to criticism. Criticism by its very nature is something that the human psyche struggles with. You know why that is? It's because somebody else has come to hold a mirror up against you. That's why I said, because of the amount of self-love some of us who've had the spiritual awakening have, we already know the one in the mirror. So when somebody comes to hold the mirror up against, we affirm, yes, that is correct, that is true, there the reflection is. Now, to answer your question, how did it all start for me and about this academic journey and finding a sense of comfort in it, making sense out of myself, how others are making sense out of me? It's been hard. I think all of my students I've encountered will tell you they've all questioned, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Sitting in lecture halls, taking notes, doing assignments. For what? For a piece of paper. And I say, yes, that piece of paper, you need it from that white institution, from that white knowledge, that white tradition, that white culture, because it's what's going to give you a step up in the white world you find yourself living in. So yes, it is a traumatic experience.
My God.
And it will give you a voice. Sorry to cut. It will give you a voice, because without that paper, that piece of paper, it doesn't matter how legitimate your statements are or your theories are. But if you are not acknowledged by a certain institution, then the Nile and Vault, point in case will be Paulo Jordan. I just wanted to add that.
No, you're absolutely true. That's why I said to the young people, you need this. It's like the idea of you may want to go to Europe, to America, to China, to Italy, to wherever, even to our neighboring countries, Zimbabwe, Botswana. You can't without a passport. So get your passport. They're going to allow you easier passage. So there's something about this model, but we've lost track completely about what is a university and how did it come into existence and what's it about. That's why I am a rebel academic. I'm living my life in the way that this thing was conceptualized originally, which was as a monk. An academic is really a monk, living in a monastery, who's devoted their lives to the idea of studying knowledge preserved by other people, generating knowledge to preserve it for others coming behind them. So the university comes into being in that way. I'm the monk and you are the novice coming to learn the ways with me. It was done through, which we still have in an African education system, shepherding, knowledge transference through being the recipient of a guru, having a mentor, a teacher that you shadowed, who imparted to you through doing, through showing, not through testing. A mentor who needs to test you is not a good mentor.
Actually, that's the process you twice. That's the process of twice. It's
You follow
about
that person.
it's mentoring, it's shadowing.
Wonderful. So I've got that philosophy in my own life. And how did I become an academic? Now, you guys can appreciate this because we've touched on the spiritual. I am a spiritual person. Even though I was born into a Christian family, I don't regard myself as religiously Christian. I've got an eclectic spiritual soup that I've brewed for myself, taking the best for myself from those different belief systems. But I had a vision as a young boy that I was going to be a university professor.
Nice.
And it was a music professor, and I saw the room I was going to be in, and it manifested itself. I found myself in a lecture hall in Philadelphia in the USA. It was the room I saw myself in the vision when I was a young boy. So this is also why we can speak about the human having difficulty and obstacle. I do believe in destiny. Destiny is what's happened to you, not what's still going to happen to you. Your destiny is what has happened to you.
My question would be, as you define yourself, as you take up your position, as you mash up all these beliefs and creating your own unique identity, how many people have you lost? People that you grew up with.
Yes.
Some acquaintances, some were spouses, lovers, and because I don't know, we don't like what's different.
We don't like what's different. Well, firstly, I should acknowledge I'm not an easy person to be with. That's perhaps why I've also lost a great many people. But I don't become attached to people. Mm-hmm. I'm not attached to my own nucleus family even, which is why I'm moving like a vagabond. Mm-hmm. Wherever the wind blows, that's where I will go. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting to see, and always know I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, because I'm in alignment by divine purpose. Mm-hmm. It's my destiny. Otherwise, I'd just be floating out there, self-doubting. No, that's not me. Mm-hmm. So if you say losing people, I have lost a great many loved ones, people, sometimes deliberately through choice, saying, I don't want to have these people around me anymore. Their vibration is not right. I have to explain my way in a particular way, which I don't feel comfortable with. Or there's a condition attached to love. I won't have it. So better to make peace with yourself. That's why I spoke about integrating or being aware of the secret self, the private self, the public self. I'm in the process of integrating that in my phase of life that I'm in right now, to the point that I don't care whether anybody knows who the secret self is any longer. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Which is why losing anything or anyone is of no consequence to me, because in my spiritual awareness, I know that I don't need anything. I don't need anyone. The universe, the creator, will see to me, even if it means going at it alone. There's an old saying, if you want to go far, what is it? Go alone. If you want to want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yes. I am in this journey. I've gone fast. It's my journey. I'm in the race against myself. I'm also very much aware that the most precious resource in my life is my time. You spoke about the tragic passing of Eusebius before we started recording. I have lost a great many people, not even through anything having to do with my life or my self-expression. Nature just calls them home. So I'm very much aware that that will happen to me also, which is why I'm unapologetic about being authentic. It's about authenticity, really. I can't be with people who are not authentic, who are curating a version of themselves for the church, for the sisters, for these ones in the family who are the ones who comment, for these ones who look for wealth and status in that. I've got no interest in that. That's why I said I'm prepared to go and lose it all. To have just my art, my words, my music, sitting on a corner with a hat or a cardboard box, saying, this is me. I'll take my blanket or my cardboard and go find a place to sleep tonight. I'm totally content.
To be fair, shouldn't we couldn't say like this, the people that we say are not truly authentic. It's them exploring the three selves.
Yes.
Because with that, I was going to ask, how much of the environment sort of influence which self comes to the fore?
Now you're touching on the deep stuff. This is where we get to the idea that they're not being inauthentic. I don't want you to ever think I'm saying there are authentic people and the inauthentic people. But what's different is they are not aware. So they're operating through the default consciousness. Does that make sense? I always say, until you make the unconscious or subconscious conscious, you are just going on your default version of who you are. That means there's a litmus test for me about what is the difference for the two types of authenticity. The conscious authenticity and the unconscious authenticity. It's the question of, if you go down to removing that person from being around another person and you leave them and lock them up on their own, does their sense of self collapse without the ability to perform who they are to the other people? Or do they feel totally content knowing, finally get to be with myself? Does that make sense? That's why I said, until you make the conscious, the unconscious conscious, you'll think you are that. Then you'll think it was your destiny.
That's deep stuff, man. It's deep stuff.
So you need to also be able to learn how to control your thoughts, and that's a marker for me of people who are just going about life on the default setting, is they are being controlled by their thoughts. As opposed to actively controlling their thoughts.
What book are you reading? What books are you reading?
I'm not reading much. I'm not reading much. I'm on a little bit of a hiatus from reading because I'm approaching 40 soon, and what can we say, 30 years of those, if not more, have been devoted to reading. I was a child prodigy with reading.
I keep telling my son to read a little less, play some crazy music.
Yes, I was reading too much as a child.
He's laughing at me right now. I keep telling him, I hope he's getting it, because I feel that sometimes we take in too much information.
Yes.
That we don't give ourselves that moment to, sometimes you read 12 steps of whatever, books that I hate 12 steps, by the way, of anything, but I'm just making an example. So 12 steps to showing love to yourself, right? There are people who will read, take in all these 12 steps, put that away, read the next book. 75 ways to reach God. But they don't take the time to actually apply those lessons and see if they'll work. So I always promote that little bit of a break. Like I read like a book like The Alchemist.
That was beautiful.
And then I sat back and I said, okay, Urim Turim. Let's see if this will work for me, Even if I don't have a black and a white stone, but let me try and ask the universe, what should I do today? You know what I mean? Exercise the things that I learned from the book. Am I aware that this was the first time I was doing this and I won at it? Beginner's luck. Yeah. You know what I mean? For me, I like to play around and exercise the things that I've just learned. And I find that sometimes we take in too much information that we don't take the time to actually practice things. And what we end up doing, like my son does, is we question a lot.
Yes.
Son, listen.
And how do you use it? I am so beyond reading for the sake of impressing other people. Now, that's my problem with academia. This has become a real shit show of going to conferences, of having people standing up at the lectern just trying to show how well read I am, how intelligent I am. And I find it is a bunch of nonsense. So I rock up at the conferences, totally throwing a spanner in the works to let them know, just like you've curated that performance, I'm going to come and show you my thing. It's not scholarly at all. It's an idea in my head. I have to act it out, or I've got videos I want to show you and say, look at this concept. Why aren't more of you doing things like this? Let's have a conversation about. So that's why I don't like reading for the sake of impressing others.
I love what you just said now, because it's taking me to my next academic question. I believe that there are three types of artists.
We're moving with trees. I love it.
There's the artist who is called to whatever it is that their art is. There's the artist who learns how to do it. And then there's the third artist who wants to be like any one of the two.
Okay.
Right? They just see this and they're like, if I can just be like Poetic Soul and just, laugh like that. And then they, like, you know what I mean? Or speak like that with rhythm and, right? I do believe that the most dangerous one is the third one. because they give us the kind of music we hear in our radios. But anyway, that's a topic for another day.
That's the conformity lacking originality. I like to copy.
Yes.
I've got nothing new of myself that I
exactly, because all I really want is for people to receive me like they receive the other two, right? I believe the one that I guess I don't know if I would say masters the thing is most of the time the one who learns how to do it, right? Because I believe I'm called, and we who are called, we just move graciously with it. You know, we just like, I just be try fan all the time. You know, we're just relaxed. Yeah, we're just relaxed. We're not trying hard, but the other ones are always pushing themselves, and that's neither here nor there. But what sometimes bothers me about the study of the arts in the academic sense is how most of it, and going back again to this African institution nonsense, right? How most of even the South African institutions, or the institutions based in South Africa that we call universities, they don't care where they are. Therefore, sometimes they never speak to the artist who is called. I will say this: who has bothered to teach in classes the chords of Mbaqanga? We speak of the history of jazz and we go into vocal jazz and but who has studied Isicathamiya Samambazo, right? We speak about a cappella music, again, vocal jazz, but who has bothered to listen at the chaotic harmonies of Omama Basenqoko, Abesombela? You get me? And the kind of singing that, you know, the Mahasha Mhlophe does. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody cares where they are. Because if we're going to teach jazz, it's American based.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
And therefore, improv, in terms of scatting, is based on American artists. And none of it comes back to the artists who were called to do it the way that they do it, who listen to a conversation between birds, you know, sitting on some tree, and they start making those sounds and humanizing those, bringing them to life for other people to listen to. I struggle with that. Why is it that in the teaching of the art, the history of that particular art form is not brought back to where we are? Because I believe that's the only time that education will ever be relevant, is when it remembers where it is. That's why I call these universities that are based in South Africa, because I don't feel what is South African or even African about them.
The beautiful thing is that the issues which you're drawing attention to are real, and while they are not universally being addressed at all institutions, and that this idea of an Africanized university, what is that? I agree with you. It's such a strange thing, because we are rooted in Africa, but we are not African because of the canon, the subject matter in the university, the tradition, the way of doing it, testing. I also feel the thing which is going to push me out of academia is I can't set another damn test paper. Why? Why in 2023, with the magnificent internet out there, are we having people writing tests? I don't understand. I'm interested in as I said to you, can you do it? Let's go and study this together. Let's listen to that Mbaqanga. Let's listen to Joseph Shabalala with his Katamiya. Where are the honorary doctorates for these people? Where are the presidential honors and awards for these people? Where is the recognition from our own people of these legends and icons? That's the problem. It's because it's not even pervasive at the grassroots level. It's not going to be in the tower at the top. And that is a tower. It's deliberately designed to say what knowledge is valuable, what knowledge is not. And also because of the idea of the gatekeeping, what you can speak about, what you can't speak about. That's why I said I'm driving the agenda about the sexual and the spiritual in my work. Like you spoke about people being called, I believe that wholeheartedly, but also to do what with it? Sometimes, so that's where my interest is at right now. How does music allow us to enjoy sexual experiences much better? They're not even speaking about that. Yet it's an everyday human encounter.
Were you going to be exploring some of that in the monograph that you
Yes.
to examine space and place of blackness in higher education?
I am... I'm opening up all of these issues. My colleague Nduduzo Makatini, who used to be at Forte, is now at KZN, just a genius, a fantastic divinator. He's championing this at the moment. So there are what I call, that's why I started writing a paper about this, then I abandoned it. I might come back to it based on what you guys are saying here today, about what I call, there are nodes. Nodes, it's a little point of convergence in universities. So please don't judge the node by the exterior bigger university, nor attribute what's happening in the node to the broader university. So because they want to say we are African, but they are little nodes. It's about the power of a person. People are doing it. You will find there's people like myself, like Nduduzo, and there are colleagues elsewhere in the country who are raising these issues to say, but for so long we've just been going to the American canon. The West is best, the European canon, because there's no literate tradition with African music. It's cyclical, it's simple, it's lacking in complexity. I say this is all just a bunch of nonsense. This is rhetoric once again, words which have been given a power, because when you throw your attention to the scenario of let's do, that's what I love doing. Then you'll find to say, let us do our own 2023 contemporary version of a song by Joseph Shabalala and Lady Smith Black Mambazo. How are you? Now, in order to do that, you have to study that original artifact, that recording of them. Immerse yourself in it. Go find out who they are. There's another aspect which we're not talking about here today, which is there's a shift in what a young person and a student is looking for and longing for in their lives these days. And it's not what you're talking about. These beautiful gems of a history and knowledge. They feel they can get it on their phones. But you can't get it fully either. So there is this slippery slope. There seems to be tides which come in and out in terms of what's valuable and what's not. And what's valuable to whom is where we've been grappling, because the university has historically regarded a person of color as a visitor. Now, this is where I've turned it on its head to say, oh no, I'm a full-time resident. And they have to accept me being in that space, asking these difficult questions, saying, to hell with West is best. White is not right. I've got a seat at the table and you will hear my voice. My students have seen me doing this activism and speaking out to the detriment of myself. Also, when I say controversial things in the university, they will throw the book at me. They will discipline me. They will penalize me. They will try to chastise me. That's why you can't speak to the media about what's happening in a university. You see how they themselves are their worst enemy. There's comfort in the hamster going on the wheel. But let it out of the cage, you got to go look for it. They won't know who they are if that hamster goes out of the cage.
It's like someone is trying to protect something. Because for me and academia, it's the language, man. You know, because I believe it's what's important is a proper articulation of an idea, and those you're communicating to, getting the message and being able to implement your suggestions. But for me, when I look at academia and how, you know, like it's verbose, it's bombastic, you know,
It's
the
a club.
language, it's anti people who are coming from a rural school somewhere in Kanduli, okay?
No, it's not for them.
Oh, Mkanduli, poor Mkanduli.
Yes. You know, so for me, I feel like if we can be able to retool the language and package the ideas in a way that is accessible to people. You know, if you teaching me marketing that like I need to sell this microphone, you know, I don't need to talk about how and I need to tell you that it captures vocals in this way and that way. It's gonna make you special because of the input and the engineering that was done in it. But academia, sure.
Academia is a kind of attached and addicted to the mechanism of what I say, it's a performance. Just which is why I love being in the performing arts, because my brain goes in overdrive seeing something being delivered to me as the recipient of the art or assisting with curating it or co-creating it sometimes even. So there's the idea that you can take and give, whereas universities and academia have seen themselves in the business of selecting, isolating, giving gifts to, and endowing, meaning you're going out there richer off than what you were when you entered. And that's why I said the university is not designed for that person from the rural village. It never was. It never was. That's why I speak about, and I have written and published about this, what I call the obstacle for Black consciousness in universities. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, as you're speaking, I'm getting excited because I'm realizing that it does not matter what the pace is of it happening, but there is a rise of a force of Black academics that could easily, given the opportunity, create this African institution, taking in everything that is African and realizing the dreams of so many fallen heroes to be authentically African, not to be Africanized, because I don't understand the whole idea of something being Africanized when we are here as Africans, but rather to build and extend the kind of information we have on who we are as Africans. Because as I'm listening to you, I'm remembering an interview with Professor Mamuketi, who was at UCT, and the stories she has to tell. And you spoke of Nduduzo Umkhulu. Now, he's hell bent in a very gentle way as well, in as far as I've interacted with him. But he's hell bent on just being and not trying to excuse his being. Do you know what I mean? And I'm listening to you, and as I referred to Prof. Sasanti, who is and is not making an attempt at being, it's just, I'm here. And I enter the space as myself. So from the moment he entered through the door, he's just Kamakwini, and he carries on, and you're thinking, why is this guy Kamakwing us? And he's just gone. He's just as, like you said, good morning. He said Kamaku, and that's what it is. We flow. Yes. We let life go. And when you meet people like that, it gives you hope that actually there are people who've heard the cries from another world, that it's time for Africa to take its space again, to understand that this is where it all is. Yes. And as I say, I don't care how long it's going to take, but it gives me hope. So as you were speaking, just those people are just vibrating within me that, hey, there's hope for us. Yes.
This is why I love colleagues like that, because we are not in it for ourselves, but in the business of giving. Then there are other academics, they're in it for themselves. It's about the profile, it's about the perks, it's about the career, it's about the stature, not about the student. Does that make sense? That's why if it was Africanized, using my own institution where I'm at, although I'm not speaking on behalf of my institution here, obviously, I find it so strange. You've got 20,000 or more students, you don't allow any opportunity for them to open or say, here's the space for a hair salon. We're employing 30 students this year to run this thing. The money coming in, the students get to do their hair for a discount price. The money coming in from that salon, there's a coffee shop also, whatever, there's live music being performed. You go 30 rand, you get an economy to fund that soup kitchen, to get the bursaries going.
To train
but they
your
are not
business
interested
students
in
as
that.
well.
Do you see if I say rhetoric?
Yeah, because you also training the students.
Yes.
Because some of them are doing business, some of them, everyone is working in alignment with what they went there to study.
Using the shuttles to move them only from their residence to campus. We should be going out to do community projects in the community. Use that shuttle, damn it, to take 20 of us to this neighborhood, to that neighborhood. You can get so much more going. There's no tests, there's no exams. It's those 20 students with that lecturer doing diligent, meaningful work for the year on the ground. They get their hands-on experience. Before you know it, those young people are employed because their CV is not just saying driver's license, yes or no, matric subjects passed. You can say experience. Leading this project, advising here, financial management of this, coordinating of that. I write a letter of recommendation for all of those students.
Yeah.
I assure you they'll be more successful than just leaving with the passport. They've got stamps in those passports now. That's the visa telling you you can go with greater ease even. You don't have to go and stand in that customs line. So I find the university, it's a creature which is archaic. That's why I want to leave it. Even though my vocation, my calling is as a teacher, I believe in this philosophy that to do something, you must have 10% intention, 90% mechanism.
Sure.
Your mechanism, if you don't have a mechanism for what you want to do, forget about it. So your mechanism must be in alignment with your ideation, with what you want to do. That's what also makes some people more successful than others. And then the last thing I'll say about this also is we have to determine what the multiple definitions of success are.
What's yours?
That's why I'll give you that in a minute. That's why the university is struggling, because it's not. It says African and wanting to brand itself. All of them are doing this. We are a proudly African university rooted in Africa. You'll see it all in their mission statements, but they are not doing Africa as Africans would. And that's why I said they haven't integrated into the university.
Also, I would use
what
more
an
cemented in Africa than
version
rooted in
of
Africa.
success is. So I will say the best advice I give to my young students who I mentor also is to say, find your own personal definition of success. Not what others have told you success is. What's my definition of success? Sleeping well every night, ready to meet my maker at this instant.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Tell me.
Before you ask that question, I know we've got thinkers even in the house, you know,
We do.
perhaps who might be sparked to ask a question, guys. No question?
Kaja. Come to the mic, sir.
This has been such a
rule.
rich conversation this
Yeah.
morning.
Yes.
I don't know. Hello.
You understand me, T?
So why don't you introduce
Something I
yourself?
thought of whilst you guys were talking about art, and you know, it just reminded me. I forgot what you said, but it reminded me of the statement that Minister Naledi Pandor mentioned. I know you guys know.
We don't
about
need
it.
any more art trainers.
Yes, we don't need any more. I just wanted to hear your comments on that. You know, because obviously they were calling for training of scientists and all of that, and she offended some people when she said we don't need any more
Art trainers.
art training. I just wanted to hear your comments on that thing.
Okay.
That's what you call tunnel vision. You understand why the person is saying it, but you can't give the words too much meaning. In essence, what they're trying to say is young people try to be deliberate in having something which is, as I pointed out earlier on, by the definition of the white world, successful. There's also the idea of our country will be in great deficiency, at a loss. We'll be poorer off if we don't have a new generation of scientists, of people at the cutting edge of medicine, leading our economy, being able to administer law in the best way possible. So that's why I say there's an understanding of why something is silly like that would be uttered. But on the other hand, you cannot, I believe this wholeheartedly, you cannot work with somebody who hates what they are doing. Just give it up. Leave it. In my culture, in Afrikaans, in the Cape Colored culture, we have this phrase which says, los net af, means leave it. Don't proceed further. It is a fuck up. Los it net af. So
you start.
I would say that when we're looking at the value of arts and artists in society, we as humanity, we've totally gone off course. That's why this planet is having all of these problems. We've not realized that the artist and the spiritual leader are the most significant people in the community. When that spiritual leader and the artist are also in collaboration, that whole community, that whole flock is at no shortage of being fed. You see that? Art, it's a feeding. So my response to a comment like that is, who will feed the nation if we don't have artists? Not with bread on their plates, but with life and its meaning and the way we try to make sense out of it. All of art is sense making out of life, or pouring back into life what life has given you. You are also, as an artist, I believe, a channel to another dimension, not on this plane, this dense plane that we are on. You are channeling things. That's why sometimes two artists sitting at opposite ends of the world will create the same thing unknowingly. Because they both were open to the channel at that time. I do believe we have to recognize the value of the arts as the saving grace for all of our trouble we are experiencing right now. And then the flip side to that also is create some sense of a comfort where you can also enjoy pleasure in life. Because that's why I said I'm coming back now that I've done all of my proving myself to the academic world, publishing my papers, I've got my credentials, I don't need to impress anybody else any longer. I'm looking at this idea of there's a sensuousness, a richness of joy which comes to the artists, which they have to release that thing which brings them joy. That struggle of extracting, of birthing. I've said to my friends and colleagues, I'm a different type of artist in a sense also, just like you've got the delivery in traditional custom, you would have a midwife before hospitals even came into existence. The woman in the village or the man in the village who knew how to deliver that baby. Either they were the ones digging the pit ready to catch or clean up, or if there were some obstacles with the baby coming through, knowing how to turn it in the tummy. That's a midwife. I am a midwife when it comes to the arts. I am there to deliver something else, created by the creator, by somebody else. And that's been the guiding principle in my work, and why I'm content, why I am a rebel academic, why I don't owe any explanation to anybody else, and why I sleep well at night. I take great pride in knowing, as a midwife of art, of humanity, I have delivered some beautiful things.
Oh man, that's beautiful, man. The last question will be...
That was beautiful, yeah.
Oh man, the last question. Look, we can go on like forever. It's such a rich and great conversation that we're having. And thank you very much for coming through and just, sharing your insight. I receive it well. It's, I got a hard on now, because for me, it's my type of conversations, so.
That's sensual. You see, we love it.
Yeah. So
I just, yeah.
Hey guys, you need to.
Well, we can't cut it off before my last point quickly.
Yeah, look,
No, we won't cut it off at all. He's got a hat on.
Be, spending almost
allow him.
Spending almost a decade in the US, how has that, shaped you? Is there anything that you're taking from that experiment, from that experience that you're coming back, to sort of experiment and just expand on it?
It does change us. We, again, just coming back because it's in my awareness also with Eusebia Makaiza, who's passed now. Going abroad changes you. He also went abroad as a student, I think, to London, to Oxford University. I had the opportunity to go to America and did have a privileged experience. I had that beautiful opportunity that as the wheels of democracy was churning, there were waves which people were surfing and riding, and I had my board out. I was riding those waves, taking advantage of opportunities which were put out there to try to do some type of reparation.
Sure.
So I take great pride in saying I am the one that Mandela hoped for.
Oh, nice.
Why I love being at Mandela and why I can say I've made a difference, because I've come from the situation being born into apartheid as a so-called colored boy, just being told, you go to that school in your area, your church is there, there's no need for you to leave this neighborhood. And I left the nest. I went to the US and it shaped me. I found my blackness there and I engaged in my decolonization. You know why there's resistance to decoloniality in the university? Because you can't do decolonization if you haven't decolonized yourself.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
I had to do that, and it came through
Unchaining the mind.
Through reading beautiful works. One of my most significant influences from the US was an intellectual by the name of Cornel West. Don't know if you've heard about him, but I encourage you to go check him out. Cornel West is an African-American intellectual like myself here sitting talking with you. He's unapologetic in what he says. He speaks from the position of blackness. He's got a preacher-teacher identity. And I have embraced that. So I find the greatest gift I got from my trip abroad was integrating these sense of knowledges, rich theories of personhood, of finding blackness, because the African American community in the US, they are a displaced people.
Yeah.
They are, like we are doing soul searching, they got it on a whole nother level, my brother, because it's slavery. So fresh right there. You know, as an African American, my grandparent was a slave on the cotton farm. Imagine that trauma. It's so recent. And the continuous atrocities against the black body there. I remember being followed around in stores also as a person of color. Those things made me aware of this is a universal problem.
Yeah.
Blackness in the world, on this planet Earth, the most beautiful thing, blackness has been contaminated to be as bad as the dark, scary night. That's where the Swart Gevaar comes from with the apartheid, the black danger. It's unpredictable like a black panther at night. You won't see it coming. But once you get its power, it's powerful. So I found a sense of self and started decolonizing myself, reading Malcolm X, reading E.B. Du Bois, The Soul of Black Folk. Having African Americans telling me, you ain't nothing but a light-skinned black man.
Beautiful.
And realizing, yes, that's who I am. I've been brainwashed in my country. So it also made me fall in love with black people in a new way, including in a romantic and sexual way. Because that's why I say about decolonization, I had been so brainwashed that even as a boy on the Cape Flats, I thought I must find whiteness to be respectable. Do you see that? We've got a beautiful question come through, my brother. I must find a whiteness to give me a sense of self, and being able to take off that cloak in America and coming back to South Africa, white people then couldn't understand why is this man not looking for affirmation from whiteness.
Before he asked me, the director said 5 minutes, 20 minutes ago. So that was going to be the last question and your response. So that's how we're going to wrap it.
No worries.
Okay, you'll wrap it with me, God.
All right.
No, this isn't a question. I just want to point out to my mother that these are the books I encouraged her to read.
Okay. He's coming with a vengeance. And she's gone. She felt it.
These are the very same books I encouraged her to read.
And there are local authors also. Mbembe is another one of them. Frans Fanon. These are gems of black intellectual knowledge that
I enjoyed Healers by Aikwe Ama. Yeah, for me, if Uleletu has that as Ben Okri, the star book, as the book, my life and philosophy has always been guided by the Healers. The Healers by Aikwe Ama. A simple thing as a Sanusi going into a place that they're not familiar with and wanting to gain access, beyond the veil, or to gain access to people that are important in that place. And what this young Sanusi that was in the making of being this healer was just told, just bring whatever that those people in that space would need the most. So in that instance, they were going to an imbizo, and in that imbizo, they were told to bring mpesu. What do you call those things? Mpesu. But it's a sexual thing.
Mpesu is an aphrodisiac.
yes.
It gives you a hard on.
And then they must just whisper that to one person, and then their name will echo and get to the chiefs of the village.
Wow.
So I've always tried to know, whenever I enter into spaces, I know how to appeal to that mass, which
Beautiful.
is something I took from Healers, the book.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes. We're closing it.
Did you hear your son?
I heard these are the books he's been trying to get me to read.
So we've got a great wealth of a black knowledge. As I said, I discovered my blackness. Many of you have been privileged enough to have been in tune with it from your birth already. That's why I said this is the complexity of the human experience. And no two journeys are alike. So stop comparing your life to anybody else's.
Person's.
And all we are merely doing in life are merely showing that's the way. I've also gone down there. No, don't go down that one. There's a booby trap down there. And life is about having fun, being playful. There should be play and pleasure. I really believe that.
Yes.
Life is about play and pleasure, but then also having discipline and hard work so that you can enjoy more play and pleasure.
When you're saying you discovered your blackness. Sorry, this is the last thing I want to say. When you say you discovered your blackness, and we were like born into it, we've always been aware of it. I'm reminded of a young black girl who I used to be close with, and she was probably 25 when she was so traumatized by realizing on that particular evening at work that she was black. She came to me and she said, all this time, these white girls just made me aware of the fact that I'm black. All my life I've just been living my life. They told me that I'm black.
So
sometimes
was she offended?
She was shocked. She really, honestly, because she's lived her life being friends with white girls, and for the first time in a workspace, some white girls were making her feel that because you're black, you're less than, and you're gonna do what we're telling you to do. And she's coming to me saying, "What the fuck? Like, I've heard you do your poetry and stuff, and never at any point in time did I relate with some of the struggles you paint out. But today, I know that I'm black because so it's not always the thing that because we are black in skin, we've always been black. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Some of us are yet to discover that we're black.
I think that's what happened to Megan. Megan, what is she called? Megan,
Prince Harry's wife. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened to her when she got to UK.
She then realized, I'm black.
She became black for the first time.
Yes.
And they hated
Absolutely. It's a difficult thing. It's so complex, but there are these different activating moments, profound moments in the consciousness and in various lives at different times. I think it's so absolutely beautiful, and that we should be able to, as you've done with me now, say, let's enhance one another's awarenesses of each other. Your perception could be true for you, but it's not true for me. Could be true to an extent, but then it deviates or changes. There's always room for fluidity, and just be yourself. Best things come to people who are going to be themselves unapologetically. So let's enjoy life and have some good sensuous play and pleasure also.
Smoke some good weed.
Dr. Glenn Holtzman.
Smoke good weed. That's helpful always, yes.